Leo was excited to begin his first day at the air traffic control station, but no one could have prepared him for what was about to happen. A plane went off its flight path and flew in a strange way, creating many dangerous situations. What happened that day would have a lasting effect on everyone involved. Then Leo suddenly realized what was happening. He looked at the radar with a worried expression. But before we continue with the story, please like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any new stories. Leo arrived at the air traffic control station, excited to start his first day. He felt nervous but hopeful that everyone would accept him since he was the youngest employee. The experienced staff welcomed him and showed him how to use the equipment to watch the skies. At first, everything went well. Planes took off and landed without any problems, and Leo was able to keep up with the busy airport. He couldn't believe he was finally doing the job he had dreamed about for years. But as the day went on and his coworkers took their lunch break, the air traffic control tower became very quiet. Leo was left with just a few other colleagues while his mentor and the other experienced staff went to the break room. That's when it happened. One of the planes on Leo's radar started to go off course, flying in strange directions. Leo squinted and looked closer at the radar. "What is that plane doing?" he thought. He looked around for his mentor, but he was all alone. The plane was avoiding all the usual flight paths, and Leo didn't know what to do. He tried to contact the plane, but it wasn't on the same frequency. Panic began to set in as Leo watched the mysterious plane fly in unpredictable patterns. He had never seen anything like it before and felt completely lost. Just as he was about to raise the alarm, the plane suddenly disappeared from the radar screen. He was torn between sounding the alarm and causing panic or staying quiet and hoping the plane would come back on the radar. He had no idea what was happening. Was it a plane with passengers or just cargo? Was this supposed to happen? Leo's heart began to beat faster by the minute. He feared he would get fired if he told anyone, but if passengers were on that plane, he had to let someone know. He had no idea what was happening, but he knew he was in the middle of something truly sinister and dangerous. So when his colleagues returned, Leo made the decision to tell them about what had happened. It might cost him his dream job, but the potential lives of people were more important. His colleagues reacted better than Leo had imagined. They weren't mad at him, they were just very confused. No one had heard of anything like that before. Together, they desperately tried to search for the plane. They even contacted other ATC stations to see if anyone else had seen the plane on their radar. Then, out of nowhere, the plane returned to the radar. It was still flying as if it were being piloted by a child, or at least someone who had never flown before, but they had sight of it again. The plane was miraculously back on course, but not for long. Where the plane was supposed to go in a slight curve, it kept flying straight forward, right into the path of another plane. The commercial plane immediately noticed the other aircraft flying on its course and contacted air traffic control. Leo informed the passenger plane that he had tried contacting the other plane, but they had failed to respond. It was getting really dangerous now. If none of the planes moved, they would collide with each other. ATC station Speedbird 1376 request to go off course, the commercial plane asked. Leo had to make a split-second decision. Should he let the plane go off course or should he wait it out? ATC station, how do you read? The planes would hit any minute now. But just as Leo was about to answer, something happened. Suddenly, the strange flying plane curved to the right and made what seemed like a U-turn. Everyone in the ATC station now watched the radar. There was no way of contacting the plane, so they cleared the sky and ensured everyone was safe. They still had no idea why this plane was flying like this, but they had to do something. Leo suggested calling the Air Force, as it didn't seem they could get the plane to land safely. Leo's mentor and colleagues agreed. They too had never been in a situation like this one before. They called the Air Force and explained the situation. It could either be a hijacked plane or someone unable to fly. The Air Force dispatched a fighter jet to intercept the rogue plane and try to regain control of the situation. As the fighter jet approached the mysterious plane, Leo and his colleagues watched in intense silence, praying for a positive outcome. Not being able to do anything in this situation made Leo feel useless. He looked at the radar and retrieved the flight routes. The plane had started as usual and departed with no unusual behavior, but as soon as it reached 28,000 feet, where normally pilots would turn on autopilot, the plane began to go crazy. The fighter jet still hadn't made contact with the rogue plane, and the situation was growing more mysterious. Leo and his colleagues felt increasingly uneasy, unsure of what was happening. They watched as the fighter jet made repeated attempts to regain control, but nothing worked. Leo became convinced the plane had been hijacked, and his colleagues agreed. They realized the pilot could hear them, but was ignoring their attempts to communicate, suggesting he wasn't one of their trained pilots. Fortunately, they discovered there were no passengers on board, which made decision-making easier. They decided to contact the military, as the rogue plane posed a serious threat to air traffic. The military jets took off quickly, having been on standby. It was now a matter of national security, and if they didn't resolve it soon, it would make the news and cause public panic. Time was running out. The jets approached the rogue aircraft and tried to reroute it to a safe landing, but to their surprise, the plane did not comply. However, something else happened that nobody had seen coming. Suddenly, Leo stared at his radio. It had been silent this whole time until now. A noise came out of it, and he looked around to see if anybody else had heard it. To his disappointment, nobody else had noticed. All his colleagues were too busy with other things right now. Leo confirmed he was absolutely sure of it. Steve believed him and quickly went to work. He needed to take action. It had become a very delicate situation. He had to inform the military about this as soon as possible. Leo hoped that he had done the right thing. You see, the pilot had said something to Leo, something that gave him a lot more responsibility than he had hoped to take on his first day. He knew that this man's life depended on him now. The man had said, "Do not let them shoot me, please." Leo still couldn't fathom that this was really happening. He had expected to start off his new job slowly, taking his time to get into it and learning more along the way, but this pilot had different plans. Leo was ambitious, but this was a bit much to deal with right away. Of course, the pilot had no idea that it was Leo's first day, but he would find out later, and they would all understand the irony of this. Maybe he would have done things differently if he had been aware of this, but it was no use thinking about that. It had already been done. In the meantime, Steve had alerted the military jets that were still trying to guide the plane to safety. He had contacted them just in time. They had been getting ready to shoot. At first, they wanted to ignore Steve's orders, as they had only just been sent to take care of this hijacked plane. But in the end, Steve managed to convince them to abort the mission. He knew that the plane was not actually hijacked after Leo told him what he had heard on the radio. He knew exactly what to do, and luckily, he was a very persuasive man. The jets could not ignore him. You see, Steve had figured out what was going on. He had checked the database to see which pilot had been assigned to this specific flight, and he recognized the name. However, he couldn't be completely sure until he checked the radar. When he saw the shape of the route that the plane had flown, he burst out laughing, but he was also angry. This pilot did not seem to understand that what he had done was extremely dangerous and irresponsible. There would be consequences, but first, Alex needed to land the plane safely. Steve, the air traffic controller, worked hard to help him, trying to prevent the situation from escalating further. Alex's reckless actions may have been irresponsible, but Steve didn't believe he deserved to be shot down by the military. Assuring them that the plane wasn't hijacked, Steve managed to defuse the immediate threat. Back in the control tower, Leo, a newcomer to the job, was captivated by the unfolding drama. This was unlike anything he had ever witnessed, a scene worthy of television. The landing created a lot of nervousness, as a reckless pilot could make more dangerous choices. However, the landing went surprisingly well. On the ground, police, airport security, and air traffic staff waited for Alex to exit. Minutes passed, and tensions rose as the cockpit remained silent. Staff spotted Alex slumped over while his co-pilot shouted at him. Eventually, police used a megaphone to order Alex out of the plane. Realizing the situation couldn't wait, Alex and the angry co-pilot exited. It became clear the co-pilot was unaware of Alex's prank and pleaded his innocence. Alex was taken to a holding cell for questioning, while Steve and Leo waited for answers. After an hour, the officers released Alex, allowing him to meet Steve, who demanded an explanation. Alex had planned a harmless prank for his last flight, drawing something in the sky as a joke for Steve. Unfortunately, the situation spiraled out of control, leading to police and military intervention. In the end, Alex avoided jail, but faced community service and a fine. Despite everything, he and Steve remained friends, and Leo would always remember his first day as the most thrilling of his career.